Hello and welcome back to my studio. Faces are so much fun to draw, but the most challenging area is choosing the correct skin tones. I like to start with a clear plan of what I'm doing to make things easier once I get involved with the drawing. This means that I want to have all the colours already picked out and ready to go once I have the main outline sketched in. I don't want to be fishing around for the right colours partway through the drawing. It's easier to begin a face if you have your reference the same size as the drawing. It means you don't have to constantly think about resizing everything. Printing it out shows the colours, so I choose the colours by testing them out on the reference material as well as a sheet of scrap paper. It's easier to see them when you lay them down first, rather than making assumptions based on just the small tip of the pencil, because this can be misleading and cause problems in your artwork later. There are always a few colours I might add and colours I may not ever use, and I'll only know this once I get going on a drawing. As you can see, I'm using Prismacolor Premier wax-based coloured pencils. They're rich, creamy and layer well. There's also a good range of colours for those skin tones. Honestly, there's no special recipe for colours when it comes to skin tones, and no rules about which colours always work. There are so many colour variations in every single face for anything like a cookie cutter approach. I've removed most of my sketch lines so that they don't show up under the coloured pencils, and I keep my artwork and reference next to each other. For my surface, I'm using Strathmore Bristol vellum paper. It's a smooth paper with just a very slight texture to it, and this means it will grab the pigment, so it's a very good choice for coloured pencil application. It's easier to work in sections rather than, say, trying to work on both eyes at the same time, so I just work in one section, or rather one eye, until I'm almost happy with it, and I'll refine everything later on. And I start with the eyes first. And it's always fascinating to me to see how many colours there really are in a human eye and face. And the colours that there are can be quite surprising, and I found that there are many more blues, greys, reds and oranges in this drawing than I would have thought at first glance. But I don't want to concentrate on the eyes for this video, and I do have a coloured pencil eye video that I uploaded recently, so you can take a look at that in more detail. The beauty of coloured pencils is all in the application of many light layers that build depth and dimension to your artwork. It does take a bit more time, but I find it a great way to learn about the human face and its features. This piece took me 3 hours and 15 minutes, less than I expected. I was thinking about 5 hours, but it's not a full face, just mostly a study of the skin. And if you're wondering about why I chose a wax-based pencil, well, it's easier to blend than an oil-based pencil. Now, all pencils have wax in them, but oil-based pencils have less wax and they're harder, and they don't blend quite so easily as the wax-based ones. Use what you have, but if you have both, try the wax-based ones for a subject like this. It'll make your life a little easier for portraits. Once the eyes are established, I can start on the nose and the skin tones. I didn't realise my head was in the way, and I'm showing you the reference close up so you can get a better view of the reference. To begin the nose, it's easiest if you start on the nostrils. I don't use black, but this colour is espresso, so it's a really dark brown. And if I want to add in dark tones, it's best to add a couple of really dark colours like dark brown or dark grey on top, instead of just using black, which can be a bit too stark and tend to make artwork a little lifeless. And subtlety is the key with noses, and it's best not to outline the entire nose. even though they are just shapes. So I'm building up my layers from light to dark with a variety of pinks and beiges. If you start the nose with the nostrils first, you have something to build on, and then you have a reference instead of just starting out on either side. And it's best to start with the light colours because those are easier to erase if you don't get the shape quite right at first. And I find that kneaded erasers are the best erasers to gently lift off colours. They don't damage the paper, and even though you can't bring paper back to its bright white, you can kind of go back to an earlier place if you haven't been too hard in pressure. And you never really want to go hard in pressure unless you're sure you have the shapes exactly where you want them, or if you're burnishing later. And burnishing is just applying lots of pigment to the drawing and is one of the final parts. For a lot of the nose area, I found it much easier if I squinted, and this breaks everything down to its bare essentials so that you can see shapes better and also all the shadows. And all the time I'm applying the coloured pencils to add layers, I'm using mostly small circular or oval movements so that there aren't any harsh stop and start lines, and this also helps to keep things light as well. I'm very glad at this point, now that I'm starting to refine the sides of the face, that I have my colour choices established at the beginning. Notice where my hand is placed when I'm applying those contours. It's way back from the tip, and also look at how horizontal the pencil is so that I can get the lightest possible pressure as well as cover a large surface area. Just barely graze the paper, and even if you don't see any pigment, keep doing those movements as you will start seeing colour develop. This is the correct pressure, and it's a really good habit to get into. I have my reference right next to my artwork, and I'm looking at it 50% or more of the time that I'm looking at and applying pencil to my work, and this is a really good habit to get into as well. It's so easy to think you're seeing something when it's not actually there. Pay close attention to your reference all the time. It's there for a reason and will help you. You can't create realism without a reference. And I do the same to the right hand side of the nose, following the contours of the side of the nose by following down from the eye. And once that shape is established, it becomes easier to add more pigment, as the main shape is the hardest part of the drawing. Creating layers is not as hard once you've got something to work with. I'm now ready to begin some freckles, and I chose a reference that didn't have perfect skin. I don't mean the freckles, but she's got some blemishes in the skin, and we want to add all of that in if we want to create a realistic look. I used 3 values for the freckles, and one in particular is the mineral orange Prismacolor. I've also added a couple of the colours together, orange first and then a brown on top to knock the brightness down. And randomness is key. You don't obviously have to follow all the freckles in the reference, but it was important to put a few more on the right hand side of the nose. I kept adding freckles and continuing with the contouring, but want to show you a trick I use to help me determine values. Values are your lights and your darks, and they're critical to achieving a great piece of artwork. At some point in the drawing you'll reach a stopping point, and now is a good time to take a picture of your reference photo and also your artwork. Then turn them into black and white using your phone or a camera and print these out without any enhancements and look at them side by side. Then we can see what refinements are necessary, and this is a valuable tool to use all the time when drawing. evaluate your art. What and where are the changes that you need to make? I'm okay with the hair, as I don't really want that to be the focus, and the eyebrows are okay. There's more contouring needed on the left eye and more needed in the eye on the left, as well as some more contrast in the right eye and in the socket area, and some more darkening under the right eye. So looking at the eyes, I noticed that the pupil in the left eye is a little bit too small, and it also needs to be slightly reshaped on the bottom, and that's okay because we can easily go bigger, not smaller. So I'm going to give that a quick fix, and I need more contouring on the sides of the face, some more contouring on the nostrils, a lot more freckles, and some more depth in the nostrils, as well as some more shape in there. And we're now at the stage where we can do that. So I follow my own critiques, and I'm about an hour away from completion, but most importantly, I have a plan. I now make those necessary adjustments. This should really work well for you, and you can do this several times if you need to. You might not need to print them out, but you can take a look at your phone and go back and forth between the images. And this is part of a longer Patreon tutorial that you can follow along with me. I provide the royalty-free original artwork, traceable line art, and a full supply list. I narrate in real time, showing you every single step of the way. Patreon's a great way to learn, and it's commitment free, and you can cancel any time. My tutorials start at only $4 a month, and I share all the tips and techniques I know and use. To see sneak previews, follow the link that takes you to my Patreon tutorial library. You can then click on any links to watch a segment, to see my teaching style, pace, the kind of things that I talk about as I draw. My artwork looks a whole lot better with these additions, and it's at this point, just before I took the pictures, that a lot of artists think that their artwork is complete and don't know why their artwork doesn't look more or less like the original. All the issue usually is that you just haven't got the last part of it done. There are always refinements that are necessary, and contrast is one of the biggest ones. By adding more shape, depth, and all that contouring, a face can really come to life. So keep going and get those darks really dark so that the lighter parts can really stand out. I've tried to keep some parts of the paper with very little pigment to also create shape in the nose and in the eyes and in the middle part of the face. The more you look at your reference and look at your artwork, the more colours you'll see emerge that you hadn't seen before, and all of this is building muscle memory. It's not all about practice, it's actually about learning how to see. If you've enjoyed this tutorial, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and hit the little notification bell to stay alerted to my newest art videos. Thank you, and see you in the next video.